You're gonna make some noise. You should show your face. Come on.
Are we ready to get started?
I think yeah.
Okay. Just pulling up a meeting so I can see. Awesome. Okay.
Hi, Bob.
Nobody knows that like once in a while I just totally mess up the intro and we have to start over.
Do it for them so it's like authentic.
I just want to say it's like only a few times I've ever done that. A few is like
yeah, you have a good run.
I think it might only be like 3 if we're being honest.
Okay. Once you interrupted me like 3 different times.
Well, once you kept screwing it up.
She's like, well, if you didn't screw up, I won't interrupt.
All right. Ready, everyone?
Ready.
Ready?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Oh wow, I'm nervous. I don't like public speaking. Although I'm just alone in my apartment.
Or are you?
The internet's so great. Okay. Welcome to I Feel Better, a pop culture podcast hosted by 4 internet friends. I'm Ashley, and I'm here with
Nicole.
Ashley D.
Linda. And Linda.
Yay, that works. Great. Today we're talking about When Harry Met Sally, and as always, we'll give our recommendations for the week and answer some questions from the audience. Speaking of the audience, hello and welcome to our live recording of this episode. Thanks so much for joining us. Our plan for the live show is to do our first 2 segments as normal, and then our question segment will be questions from those of you watching. So please leave your questions in the chat or send them to us on Twitter at IFeelBetterPod, or you can use the hashtag IFB50. Feel free to ask questions or comment on anything we've discussed, anything pop culture, pretty much anything polite and nice. Anyway, basically, whatever. If you don't ask the questions, we just have a list of stuff that we've prepared because we expected nobody to show up. So we hope we won't need them, but they're there. All right, so first up, we're discussing the 1989 classic rom-com When Harry Met Sally, starring Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal. What did everyone think?
This could be a friendship like ending moment if someone thought something not
I know,
good.
don't say anything wrong.
That's what I think. It just holds up so well after all this time.
Although the fashion choices are amazing.
I know, I love the hair.
They're all coming back.
Big teased hair and permed hair.
I mean, her hair seems outdated for 1989.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that part of it is earlier in the time frame, so that I guess that makes sense.
It eventually gets a little sleeker.
Yeah, a little bit, but still very blow dried.
So for me, I think this is one of those movies. I didn't see it till I was in college, and the more that I watch it, like every year or so, I love it more and more. Like I feel like it just like builds that place inside you, and you're like, oh, I love it, and you like fall in love with the characters, and it means so much more, I guess.
I feel like
you relate to it.
I understand it differently now than I did when I first watched it. I think I first watched it when I was a teenager.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like I feel the same about it. Like nothing's changed. I just felt like I was like reading a favorite book or like diving back in. I didn't get any new insights or anything, which I was kind of hoping for. Like, did nothing change for me?
Are you not growing as a person?
I think it was funny because
wow, we're judging you.
I think she had like and you probably didn't notice because you weren't looking for them, but 2 stuffed penguins in her bed. And I was like, oh, I sleep with a pink penguin still. Oh no. So yeah, it felt like nothing's changed for me. I had the same reactions, the same good feelings, and had the same like frustrations with Harry. I was like, what's his name again?
He's not a very likable character sometimes.
I had in my original intro, I guess Tom Hanks was busy, which I decided was a little too late before I took it out. But there's something unique about Billy Crystal. But you can't help but watch this movie and wonder, like, what if it was Tom Hanks instead? Just because we know that pairing so well. He has much more charm to pull off being unlikable.
Yeah. When he was doing the voices, did it remind anyone of him in Princess Bride? True Love. No.
No.
I just cried on our list.
I really just let you stay alone and by yourself on that one. What's interesting to me, well, I mean, I know the show we talk about way too much is How I Met Your Mother, but it's similar in that it like posits all of these like principles or like ideas that are so easy to disagree with, but do make for like good discussion topics. Like, I mean, obviously the biggest is, can men and women be friends? And, you know, he just has all these theories about like reading the last page of the book, but, you know, she rightly called him out that that's not a dark side. Like,
There was a time when I would have found, or when I did find early Billy Crystal charming. And yeah, well, I'll take that to therapy, clearly, okay.
I thought Bill Clinton was really cute, so judging.
But I feel like every time I watch it, I'm like, wow, you're so obnoxious when you were first out of college, Billy Crystal. I can't even.
Not to mention, he does not look like he's just out of college.
No.
You're like clearly 30.
Oh.
Which we relate to. Like, we couldn't probably pull it off as well. Well, some of us probably could, but I believe Ashley just got out of college.
For me, it was really interesting. I watched it with my boyfriend, John, and he'd never seen it before. And so I was like super excited to watch it with him. And he thought it was boring. So it made me like reconsider, like, do I just like this because it's one of those like nostalgic movies for me, or does it really not hold up that well? So I
thought you were going to say it made you reconsider your relationship.
Maybe reconsider.
You're like, how fast can I get out of here?
Yeah, that's funny. Do you have any thoughts on like are there any of the principles that you agree with or disagree with?
I think it's too general. There's always exceptions, and I can see why people would argue that, you know, men and women can't be friends because there's so many anecdotal evidence of how they fail. But it's also, you can flip it, you know, like I have male friends that I don't think that they are attracted to me, and I'm clearly not attracted to them. And I mean, I officiated one of their weddings, so I mean, he's probably my biggest like argument. Like, I'm like, hey, I don't feel anything for him and never have. So
I feel like I've always heard that men and women can't be friends from a guy who is currently friends with somebody who he has a crush on. I'm like, are we not friends? What's like, why are you making this one single situation about something so much bigger? Obviously he can be friends.
And for me, it's hard because I feel like all the guys in my life who've wanted to be like closer friends with me than everyone else, like they have like Linda knows this, they have liked me.
Yeah.
So it makes me be like, maybe that is true. I don't know. Because I've never had a really close guy friend who was just a friend. They've always wanted something more. Even if they wouldn't admit it at the time.
There's always been a little something more. Yeah. I feel like as I've gotten older, I tend to agree more that it's very rare that it can be just a true, like, untainted friendship. But that's also
go ahead. No, you go.
I was going to say it's possible. I think it's possible, but it's rare.
Yeah, but it's the exception. Yeah.
I'm also very, and Ashley knows this too, or Ashley D knows this, like I'm very weird about boundaries, romantic boundaries. And I would make it awkward if I even suspect that you might have a crush on me. And I would like draw that line before it can even like squash any kind of hope. So I don't know, like, I just feel like, and I did have like one good friend of mine where I really enjoyed his friendship, but it was clear that he also had feelings for me. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, how do you walk that balance of like not encouraging them and giving them false hope, but also not turning your back on a friendship that you really value? And so it's just really complicated. And can be really complicated. So I don't think that you can just make a blanket statement. Another one that I like, a rule of mine that I'm trying to like dismantle, because I know that not everything can be like summarized in a rule, is like, can you be friends with an ex? Because I've never had that ever. And I'm like, I'm sure like people have done it, especially married people.
I just listened to a podcast hosted by two exes. It can happen. Any of the other ones, I feel like that got very serious. But I feel like the movie itself, like, kind of walks away. I feel like ambiguous on the topic. Like, I don't know. You could argue that it does prove him wrong or prove him right,
yeah.
but I don't think it necessarily does.
Right, because they did. Yeah.
I don't know.
Can I pull comments from our viewers?
Yes.
Newman Zone said that I think mature adults can be mutually attracted to each other and be friends and have an innocent platonic relationship.
That seems complicated to me, but maybe I'm not mature.
We're not quite there yet.
I mean, I do feel like all the times that I've wound up in that situation, like, and I've been like, oh, why did this happen? I could probably look back and be like, well, you're a big flirt, and that's why it happened. And like, because that's like my default if I'm like uncomfortable or something, and I'll just be like, and then I'm like, okay, so maybe that's a little bit okay. Maybe if I were in control of that impulse, that wouldn't happen at all.
Our friend Liz Gilbert has said something in one of her books.
Oh, she's our
BFF.
We talk about her all the time.
What a promotion. I like that.
But in the book, although this is a book about her explaining why she was getting married and now she's getting a divorce, but in her book Committed, she talked about infidelity in male and female friendships. And I liked her little rule. She said that, like, if you're going to have a friend that you're attracted to or who is attractive, you kind of enter that friendship with innocent intentions and no, like, I guess no malice. But if you start building a foundation for something where it can lead to an intimacy that, like, you didn't, like, basically you can build a foundation through your friendship. And one rule that she gave was imagine it being like a house, like you and your spouse or your significant other is building a home together, and you want that home to be a private home. And if you tell someone that you're kind of attracted to about all your problems with this person, you're building a window into your house for them to, like, view your intimate problems, and then also at the same time building a wall between you and your man because your partner, because you're not telling your partner that you're talking about them to someone that you find kind of attractive, because you're probably not even aware that you're a little attractive because you kind of want to think yourself as a pure person.
I feel like all three of you are talking about, like, really close, intimate friendships, though, and I'm talking about more like internet friends and work friends. Said, like, the office spouse, which I totally understand. Like, yeah, I mean, maybe I use the word friends too broadly, but I'm not talking like traveling
I don't have
together.
Casual friends, so I don't know.
Also, Lisa in the chat asked if the two exes I was talking about was related to the My Favorite Murder podcast, and yes, they did crossover of both of their podcasts. It's Karen Kilgariff and Dave Anthony. Yeah, they're like they dated when they were in their 20s or something, and I think they're in their 40s now.
I would like to interview them about this.
Also, Linda, I was just gonna say, like, Liz Gilbert's getting a divorce and Glennon is getting separated.
Yeah.
And, like, all our favorite ladies.
Yeah, who've written books
Brene,
about
is
their
she
marriages.
next?
Oh, God.
Oh my gosh. Sorry,
I
Brene.
agree with Dee that Liz Gilbert's friends.
Knocking on wood.
No.
But taking the topic back to the movie, instead of going deep into all kinds of self-help stuff, which we're very good at. Any other thoughts on the movie? I mean, I love Carrie Fisher in this movie, and I love her whole, like, side plot with Harry's friend as well. Like, they're cute.
That's great.
And, like, the wagon wheel coffee table. I mean,
It's so real.
I remember when I was, like, young, I was like, that wagon wheel doesn't seem too bad. And now I'm like, I could never live in an apartment with a wagon wheel coffee table.
I love that in the beginning she was kind of like someone that you kind of wanted more, like, to, like, stop dating this married person, and then she ends up being, like, the ideal, like,
yeah,
the flip was kind of funny.
Yeah, without, like, a bunch of, I feel like in any other movie she'd be like, she'd have to work through all of her problems first, but instead she'd just like, no, just find a better relationship. Yeah. Not sure if that's a good lesson or not. Any other thoughts on the movie?
I love I don't know if it's the last scene, but the New Year's Eve scene.
Yeah.
Harry and Sally.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, that quote about like
Mhm.
when you find the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, you want the rest of your life to be as easy as possible. I mean, that's a pretty good line.
That made me want to gag. That was the only thing I didn't like.
Oh, even John, my boyfriend, was like, "Oh, that's so sweet."
Yeah,
Where's your soul, Linda?
Linda has no heart.
It's too
Yeah.
much.
I was gonna
It's
say, no
not
matter how many times
frosting.
I see it, it still makes me like, oh.
I guess speaking of the qualities of Billy Crystal, I think I believe it coming out of his mouth because he doesn't say like over the top cheesy things really in the rest of the movie, so it feels like it has meaning behind it. All right. Any other thoughts on the movie?
I just want to go watch it again.
Our viewers are talking about the baby fish mouth, which was awesome.
Oh yeah.
And the soundtrack was amazing.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the next part of our podcast. What's making us feel better this week? Ashley D?
I listened to a new podcast today. Yay! It's called The Accused, and I opened the podcast app on my phone, and I don't know what my settings were to, but it was the number one on the list. So I was like, I'm going to listen to this. It's a true crime podcast about, let me pull it up. I have it here. An unsolved murder. So this girl, I think she was 23, was found murdered in her Ohio apartment in 1978, and they decided immediately that her boyfriend did it, and it went to trial. But then 2 juries disagreed and said he was not guilty. And then nothing ever happened. They didn't keep investigating the case. They just kind of left it and just assumed that he did it, but it wasn't proven guilty. So now the Cincinnati Enquirer, which to me sounds like a super cheesy thing, but apparently it's very legit, is investigating it.
Or just raises red flags.
Yeah, but I was reading the reviews and everyone's like, oh, it's this super important paper. So I think it's the Cincinnati newspaper, or I don't know. Anyway, they're investigating it, and it's very similar to Serial, where they're interviewing people and going through this crime scene and the trial and all of that. So it's really interesting if you're into that kind of thing. I listened to 4 episodes today. So I was 4
How many are there?
There's 8 right now.
Wow. It's really the true crime podcast boom right now.
But I feel better. Yeah. Listen to people getting murdered, and then you feel really good.
Yeah, of course.
About not being murdered.
Yeah. I listened to this at the gym, and then I came home and took a shower in the apartment by myself, and I was like, is there anybody in here?
That's why I have clear shower curtains. You can see them coming.
Clear shower
Linda?
curtain's a great idea. I've been
I
scared
got it after
of-
watching The Ring. I was like, okay, no more.
Yeah.
Whoa, 15 years ago?
Yeah, ever since then, I've always had clear shower dressings. It's only the practical, safe thing to do.
Well, I saw this shower scene from Psycho in some montage of famous horror movie scenes when I was 10, and I lost my mind. I should have gone clear shower curtain at that age, because I used to make my sister come and sit in the bathroom and I'd take a shower, not with a clear shower curtain. That's weird. And I'd be like, you need to sit there and talk to me because I'm afraid I'm gonna get murdered. I don't know if I told you that part, because that would be really mean to tell your little sister. I'm putting you in charge of the murderer, but yeah.
We should rename our podcast to the Murder.
No, I'm
Makes Us
trying
Feel
to be recovering true crime addict. Not working, but
Murder
Everyone's
makes us-
loving this clear shower curtain conversation.
Yeah, it's very popular.
I'm happy to know that, because to me that's just absurd. I mean, I do have a clear shower curtain, but it's not like a life principle I live by or anything.
But now the next time you take a shower, you're going to be like, wow, I could see if someone was going to come stab me, and I'm pretty happy about
You
that.
can identify your murderer because of the fog and the steam, but you can see movement. That's all you need to know to get out of there. Right?
I feel unlike movies, it's not usually super steamy in my bathroom.
mine's always
You
super
still have to
steamy.
stay dead naked on the floor.
Yeah, but I'd rather make her run naked than stay still naked. Options.
Oh my gosh. Linda, what's making you feel better?
Okay, So I started and finished a graphic novel called Blankets. It's really big.
I read it.
Like 800 pages, and I loved it so much. It's about, I guess it's an autobiography about first love and growing up, coming of age, and struggling with religion and falling in love while you're struggling with religion. So I really enjoyed it. And I think he has another book that I'm going to look up and see because I really like his work. I always had this like stereotype that graphic novels were all like superheroes and stuff. So I'm really enjoying like the past couple of years where I'm like enjoying graphic novels that are not about superheroes. And
I did not like Blankets that much. Like I didn't dislike it, but it didn't like get to me, I guess. It didn't touch my heart. And somebody online got very mad at me about that.
Well, that last line from Billy Crystal didn't touch my heart. So I think give and take.
We have hearts, but just in different places.
And then I started a Netflix show called Easy. It's really good. It's about, I don't even know why it's called Easy, but it's a collection of, all the episodes are 25 minutes long and each one is a vignette. And it's about like a certain aspect of a relationship. So the first episode was about a married couple who's been married their like 20 years and how to stay attracted to each other and their sex life. And then the second episode was about a lesbian couple just now getting to know each other in the beginning stages of their relationships and trying to become the person you think your partner may like and not actually. So basically she's dating this vegan and she tries to be a vegan and ends up like eating a whole pizza. So like, so it's like, I love the little like 25, they can do a lot in 25 minutes. It kind of reminds me of the second to last episode in Master of None, where he puts the entire relationship in 30 minutes. And then like each episode is a new set of characters. So it's kind of fun. And I like watched 3.5 episodes this afternoon. I loved it. And that's it for me.
Right. Well, this first one, I like broke the news to Nicole before putting it on here because it's Archer, which I know she loves. And I've watched I'm in the 4th season already. Like I'm watching it.
You're tearing through this.
I don't love it. I've been watching it for a couple weeks. I don't really love it. And I'm actually curious, like, what? Linda, do you watch it too?
I used to, and I liked it when I did. But
what do you guys love about it?
I love that I feel like I'll take off my depressed hoodie. I feel like what I love about it is the inside jokes in the show and through lines. And keep in mind, I have no idea if any of what I love about Archer is specific to Archer, is just like a thing that happens in cartoons in general, because it's the only one I watch. But I really appreciate the humor. I think a lot of it's really, really dry, and that's right up my alley. And
it's absurd, and there's farce, Miss Nicole.
Is there?
A little bit. It's not.
I mean, aside from people not dying when they clearly should die, which I think is just cartoons.
I mean, it falls in the
that's just like the action genre in general.
Yeah. It's not like slapsticky farce, which I'll have to send you a clip from Noises Off sometimes, because that's the show when I finally was like, that's what I can't handle.
Did you see the crossover between Bob's Burgers? Because I know you like Bob's Burgers.
Yes. No, I've never actually watched Bob. Oh, you're talking to Ashley.
Yeah, I did. Actually, that one just came up last night, I think, when I was watching it.
Did you like it? Was it fun?
No, I didn't. It didn't do anything for me.
So when I first asked you like how far you had gotten, I was thinking like, well, if you're not that far yet, you're not getting a lot of the payoff of like the way everything develops and all like the through line jokes and everything. But you're in season 4, so you should be like there. I will say you should keep going and definitely watch Archer Vice. And I can't remember if that's season 5 or 6. I think it's 5.
Okay.
You're in Miami.
I mean, I probably will. I'm a completist. But yeah, I knew that if I was like 2 episodes in, I was like, I don't like it, that you would tell me to like, you don't get it yet. So I was trying really hard to get it. And actually, I thought that I would. I thought it would like click for me, but it hasn't, unfortunately. But
what about it? Can you?
Like, I don't find it very funny. I don't find like the recurring bits very funny or clever. So it's like I'm just watching an action show with no.
I think it's clever, so now I'm doubting my own cleverness. But that's just fine.
Well, I don't like it at all, so I don't know what that says, but maybe I have like no clever action radar.
But like on to things that make me feel better. I watched the movie Hot Fuzz yesterday. Which like kept appearing on my Netflix, like telling me to watch it. So I finally watched it. I should have looked up information about it. I should know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's a British comedy, but it's more than comedy. It's kind of like genre bending because it's kind of a horror film as well. But it's done in this really interesting style. Maybe not unique, but like, I don't know. There's a lot of really fast cuts and kind of stylized action to it. And then I also found it hilarious, and the actors are charming. I know they've worked together. Simon Pegg, I think, is one of them. They worked together on a number of different projects. And I kind of always wondered if I would like their style of comedy. And I think that I do. So I might look into the other stuff that they've done. And then this was a weird one. I spent like 30 minutes, probably closer to an hour, the other night on YouTube watching Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers duets.
Oh.
Okay.
So, I mean, something that makes me a little bit different than most of my friends is that I have older siblings who very much influence my pop culture taste. And my sister used to be super into these duets, and like I've heard Islands in the Stream probably like a million times through a bedroom wall in my life. So it was like I don't know what inspired me, and then I just got like on a tear because of course like all the suggested videos were more duets between them, and you like the songs are great, but you have to watch them perform live because they're so charming and adorable together, and I just haven't seen anybody do a duet like that in ever. And so, I don't know, it's just like the hairstyles were there, the outfits, their little actions with each other, their voices. I mean, Dolly Parton is so talented. Kenny Rogers too, whatever, but Dolly Parton especially. So I'll link that in our show notes. I highly recommend, spending a little time on YouTube, checking that out. All right, Nicole?
I have 2 books this week. I think last week I had 2 TV shows. This week I have 2 books. One is The Nest. Look, I got visual aids
everywhere.
Yeah,
I know.
The cover's so pretty.
I would be lying if I said part of the reason I didn't buy this book in the first place because it's like the most beautiful book I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. It's got like the turquoise and the rose gold, and I'm their audience, and it's like foiled. It's by Cynthia Dupree Sweeney. It came out maybe over the summer. Maybe a little earlier, might have been spring. And it's about this family who has like this nest egg, hence the nest. And there is some big family falling out with it. And there is not a lot happens. Okay. So if you're not into not a lot happens, just don't even pick it up. And in fact, like I actually, before this podcast, started reading some of the Amazon reviews about it, and it was making me like feel bad about how much I like it. And so I was just like, I just shut that shit down. I was like, I can't. Because somebody was saying it's overwritten, and I usually don't like overwritten stuff. It is very descriptive, but it's one that when I put it, I am able to put it aside. But I really enjoy the company of the brothers and sisters in the family in the book. And when I come back to it, I'm like, oh, right, I kind of missed you. So I'll be like sad when it's over. I think I've been like kind of parsing it out. But I've really been enjoying it.
I feel like we could answer a whole question about how like our thoughts are like our own feelings about pop culture, how we deal with other people disagreeing with us. Because I could give this very like objective answer, but that's not the truth. Like I do judge people who don't like stuff that I super, super love. I don't care if they like don't like something I don't care that much about. But it's not like it lasts. Like if you told me, Nicole, that you hated my favorite show, and you kind of did with the IT Crowd,
Yeah.
Like, I do judge that, but then I also forgot about it like 10 minutes later. Like I don't really care long term, but it's not like
So you
it
don't have a
doesn't.
voodoo doll of me? Like every
Yeah,
time you
it's
watch
not like it doesn't affect me at all, though. Like I do, when you care about something and somebody either you care about or is just being obnoxious to you doesn't like it, it definitely affects you. I think people get that way with literature, especially because there's some like perceived idea that it's like high-minded or something. So it feels like a threat to your intelligence or something if you know really like something that other people think is terrible.
Yeah, that's how I felt reading the Amazon reviews. I was like, oh, maybe I'm not that good at forming opinions. Like what?
I get that way about food sometimes. Like just yesterday, I was at a happy hour and was like giving people my favorite snacks, and then one guy who's a friend of mine ate it and was like, meh. And I was like, you just missed my childhood. I wonder why we do that. I think it maybe because we feel like we put some of our identity.
It's personal.
Yeah.
It is.
Like once it becomes part of your identity, then it's like somebody is threatening your very person.
Well, and I think something I was excited about at Archer, I was like, oh, you're gonna watch it, and then you'll know all the jokes, and we can say the things, and like it'll be a thing. And
then I crushed your dreams.
Yeah,
as fast as I could.
Yeah. My other book, which I did not look up any reviews of because I don't need to, on Mary Roach, is Mary Roach's newest book, and it came out maybe a couple months ago. It's called Grunt. The subtitle is The Curious Science of Humans at War. If you've never read anything by Mary Roach, something she does is will go dive into research like on the ground with experts and will write about a very specific topic. Her first book that I ever read, I don't think it was her actual first book, was Stiff, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. And it is like the strange life of like dead bodies or something. And it's all like a chapter will focus on like going to a place where plastic surgeons are training. That was probably a hospital. That's the word for that, right? And she'll like talk about them like working on the cadavers and like working on a head. And then the next thing she's like going to a body farm somewhere like near the FBI where they're like taking dead bodies that have been donated to science and seeing how they decompose in trunks. Another thing I feel better about. Wow. But
this is the book you told me to read at like late at night the other day, right?
Yes, I think so.
I don't see Ashley liking this, but I would like her to read it and hear what she.
Yeah, but this one is.
Oh, go ahead.
What? Go ahead.
That Stiff. She taught me that if you want to survive a plane crash, the odds are for you if you sit in the window away from the aisle because luggage will start falling and hitting your.
Oh
head.
yeah,
I'm gonna live.
Yeah. Her window girl for life. But Grunt is really great. I feel like her other stuff, she's written one about sex called Boink, one about digestion called Gulp, and one about space, which I gave to my sister's boyfriend for Christmas. He's a space nerd, and he really liked it. It's called Packing for Mars, and he said it was super interesting. I haven't read that one yet. But Grunt, the first like couple chapters, for examples, are about like what they do to test gear that they send soldiers into war with, and like what they do to develop food. And there's just a lot of like nitty gritty things about the way war works from a supply standpoint and from a lifestyle standpoint. That's really, really interesting. Because I was almost reading it just because I like Mary Roach, not necessarily because I wanted to read about the topic, but she tends to make the topics interesting. So she's still doing it with this.
Cool. I just want to say shout out to the people in the chat who are on Team Dolly Parton is amazing.
I think we should do a live video every week because this chat is so fun to like see the comments coming as we're talking.
I know, it's great. Okay, so it's the part of our podcast where we answer a question from the audience, and there's actually an audience here. So please start submitting your questions, and we will answer them. If you don't have questions, we'll just make them up. So we'll start with one of ours, which is, what have you learned about the other girls from podcasting?
Who's going first?
I don't like Archer.
Does this mean I have to go first? I'm not prepared.
Just chat amongst yourselves, whatever.
I've learned that we can still be friends even if we don't like our favorite things of the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've learned that we have a lot more less in common than I thought.
Yeah, but it's interesting though, because about like our primary topic per episode, we very often do agree on those things.
Yeah, but our individual choices of what we recommend are usually so different.
Yeah, totally. I guess that doesn't surprise me. Do you think I feel like you guys have more in common in your taste than you do with me? Is that not true?
I feel like I have the most in common with you in books.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. I think it just depends on the area. I don't really like any of the Liz Gilbert daring greatly world. Like, I don't relate to that very much, and I feel like it comes up a lot on our podcast.
I think we all have different crossover areas, and that's kind of what works. Like, that's where Ashley D and I cross over a lot. I feel like you and I have a lot of good movie crossover, sometimes TV crossover, Ashley.
Yeah, and we have like a history of that, except for when we break each other's hearts.
Maybe that's why it hurts so bad.
Yeah, that is really true. We all have like there's a Venn diagram to be made.
Like charting all the different connections. I love it. So to kind of go off of that, Julie Everett, who's Linda's IRL friend, says, how many hours a week do you read, Linda and Ashley? It seems like a ton. #life goals.
Ashley, you go first.
You guys, I totally got you fooled. I don't. Well, right now I don't read that much. Like, I have had a terrible reading year. Actually, basically since like about this time last year, I've been terrible at reading because just because my work.
Okay, but what does terrible in reading mean?
Like I have not been reading at all, basically.
Okay.
Do people think by terrible I mean like I only finished 70 books this?
To me, terrible is like not reading at all. Like, if I'm good, I'm reading like 20 minutes a day is like awesome for me.
Yeah, no, I have not. I've barely been reading at all. And I actually used to be so lucky that I had some time at work to read, which is just not possible anymore. And also, I just feel like I get home from work and my brain is in a state that like reading is not a great option. It doesn't feel like one. So, but this has always been true of me in that I'm a total binge reader. So whenever I do read, I read a ton at once. But I've never ever been like, well, actually, maybe when I was younger, just because I read all the time. But I've never really been a very consistent reader. Like, I don't read a certain amount of time a day. I don't read at the same time every day, especially as an adult. Linda?
I try to read 50 books a year, and this will be my 5th year doing it, and I haven't failed. But every December, it's like a race. Like last year, I had to read 15 books.
Can I find?
In last December, I read 15 books because I was trying to like catch up to my goal. Currently, I'm only at 28 books, which means I'm about 9 books behind schedule because we're pretty close to the end of the year now. I used to have a regimented like reading schedule. I always keep a book in my car in case I'm waiting on a late friend. I keep a book at work in case no one's around to talk to when I'm eating lunch. And then I keep a book like at home. So there's always like at least 2 or 3 books being rotated, and I don't have like
I feel like
now.
This came up early on our podcast where I think it's so weird to have a book in each place rather than just carry the book you're reading.
Yeah, I don't know why.
People watching have opinions on this.
Yeah,
very important. I mean, weigh in, please.
Ashley D used to live with me, and anyone who's ever lived with me knows that every time I leave the apartment, I'm lucky I have my car keys. I'm lucky if I have my like.
Like, wait, your keys are over here.
Yeah. Linda, you're not wearing any pants.
So me carrying the same book around everywhere is just really challenging because I just am terrible with like leaving with the things I plan to leave with. But yeah, I don't have any. I binge read now, so I'll have like a weekend where all I do is read, and then like 2 weeks where I don't. So it's hard to predict, but I always try to keep at least 2 or 3 books rotating, so I'm not bored.
Yeah, somebody weighed in to say they have an emergency car or book in their car. Really backwards. Yeah, I very rarely read more than one book at the same time. Usually the only reason I do that is because I've actually gotten bored with one. And I finish almost every book that I start, but sometimes my way of not doing that is just lying to myself about whether I'm really going to pick that book up again and finish it. Like, I realize at a certain point, there are plenty of books I don't finish, but I just lie to myself about how I'm definitely going to finish them at some point. And that's why I feel like I never DNF books.
The trick is to read books that aren't like overlapping. I've only made the mistake once when I was reading 2 Rob Lowe books at the same time, and then I couldn't keep what was happening.
Like, this is a super interesting book.
I failed.
I can
That's
do like
funny.
a fiction and a nonfiction at the same time. Like that I can do.
I will do an audiobook and a paper book at the same time. Also, that's true. Like, once in a while, if I'm reading some nonfiction that's more, not like memoir type nonfiction, but more like informational type stuff, which I don't do very often, then I'll read that along with like something that's more interesting.
Yeah. Because I moved recently, like all of my reading was on public transportation before. And sometimes I would have like a book I read on my Kindle and then like a hardback that I couldn't always carry around. But when I wasn't going to be on the train as often anymore, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to lose all my reading time. And I'm actually reading more now because I was worried about it. And I'm still like reading a couple hours a day. And I'm like, okay,
That's
whatever
awesome.
game that was worked. It was.
A couple of hours a day is a lot.
Yeah.
I usually read in the morning and at night.
Okay, next question ties in. For those of you who feel comfortable sharing, what are your jobs and careers, and how does that affect your consumption of pop culture, if at all? I guess I'll go first. I am a virtual assistant / sell makeup from home. So I work from home. I can set my own schedule. So it greatly affects my consumption of pop culture, meaning that I can go to the gym at like 10 o'clock and watch The Price is Right every day or listen to podcasts. I usually watch an episode of Heart of Dixie in the afternoon. And then I read at night before I go to bed.
I work in a library, which I think most people know. I imagine they have no idea what I do there. I coordinate all of the students who work for us, which is like over 60 students right now. So it's a big job. And I was promoted into this role at the end of last year. And it's definitely influenced my pop culture consumption tremendously. Like, I just mentioned a lot of things, but also I used to have a lot of time at work where I was just like doing kind of repetitive tasks, and I would listen to podcasts and audiobooks then. And now my work is takes much more of my brain, is more creative, or is like more detail oriented. And I just find I do that stuff so much better when I don't have any distractions. Also, people are constantly interrupting me to ask me questions now. So I just I don't get any of that podcast listening done. Good thing I listen to podcasts where I'm like doing everything else in the world, in which I never talk to anybody else, like shopping and all of that stuff. So I still listen to a lot of podcasts, but yeah, it's definitely affected my reading. Not really any of my television or any other consumption. And I don't feel like it doesn't really influence like what I choose really in any pop culture way or anything.
I'm a stage manager, so I work a lot of nights, and it's kind of good for the fact that when I am home nights and my fiance's home at the same time, we'll like watch something we're watching together. So if I'm like home alone during the day while he's at work and his 9 to 5, I'm like, I can watch whatever I want, and I'll like go like binge watching something on Netflix. Like, so it's really good for that. And I do get like my quiet time to read and stuff. For a while I was doing for a good 5 or 6 months, I was working like a day job and my evening job. And I was kind of like squeezing in mostly, I didn't really do audiobooks, but a lot of podcasts, because it was all like going place to place, or even now when I have some like side gigs I'm doing at home and it's a lot of just like typing, I'll leave a podcast going. So I do a lot of editing too for like audio for us and like for video for other projects. And something that annoys the crap out of me is that I can't listen to something else while I'm doing it, because I need to listen to audio what I'm working on. Oh, I hate it.
Also, because usually when I'm editing video of myself talking, and I would love a distraction from having to sometimes that's painful. So it's like so frustrating that it takes like all of my senses and everything just to edit video.
Yeah.
Such a disappointment.
I'm an admin part-time and then part-time freelancer, and that's everything from teaching how to draw naked hot models to photography to writing. So my side gig all my side gigs don't influence my pop culture stuff because I have to actually be present. I can't read when I'm teaching how to draw a naked model, and I can't read if I'm talking to you about photography. But when I'm at my day job, which is part-time, whenever I do repetitive stuff, I listen to podcasts or the radio. But it's usually a podcast. The radio, like Pandora, I do whenever I need a little bit more focus because I can tune out music easier than I can words. So that's it for me for that question.
Speaking of listening to podcasts while doing stuff, I'm going back to New Orleans at the end of the month to another like volunteer house building situation. And my I am just like building up the list of like long podcast episodes that I just want to listen to. And hopefully I'm doing something really detailed, like caulking like baseboards, and I can just like in my own little world. Like last time I got to work in a closet. Linda.
See how happy you are.
Last time I got to just work in a closet, and I was like a happy little camper listening to podcasts the whole time. It was like my happy place. Linda.
Are we ready for the next question?
Well, just to like speak to that, like I do kind of miss my time to just totally listen to podcasts and basically just do my kind of work that didn't require a lot of brain power. But also that was when I was always like looking at the clock like, oh my gosh, is it really not time to go? Like, do I really have 7 more hours at work? And I don't feel that way anymore. So it's like, it's a toss up. But
yeah, today I was listening to the Accused podcast, and I listened to like 4 hours of it. So it was a good amount. But by the end I was like, oh my God, stop talking to me. I need to like do my work. And I had to turn it off. So it was like too much.
I also usually get through a lot of audiobooks when I travel and go hiking because it'll be like 4 days by myself.
And
so I
somebody talking to you.
Yes, like truly sometimes when I'm on hikes I like need somebody just having a conversation I don't have to participate in, like in my ears, to just keep me going.
Yeah. Okay, Explorer, which I think is Trevor, right? He says, will you guys ever
Let us know.
live in a house with a camera crew like Real World?
The four of
If
us
people
together?
saw us hanging out together, they would realize how boring that show is.
Like, we can turn it on for an hour for you guys, but the rest of the time, it's not going to be this fun.
You'll just see, well, you used to just see us on our, like, sitting next to each other on our laptops. Now it's more like on our phones, I guess. It's funny because the last 2 trips we've done, we went into national parks where the cell coverage was not good. We really just had to talk to each other. We talk to each other, but we're not like, even if you watch like the few minutes before we started recording, like, we're boring people.
We're definitely
It
that
looks like
couple
we hate
in the
each other.
cafe that's like on their phones.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes it seem like we don't actually like each other, and we totally do, and we giggle like this constantly when we're together.
Yes.
Like it's absurd. Like it's almost like the last time. No, when we went to Grand Canyon, then we came back to LA. The people in the hotel next to us got mad because we were
Noise
laughing.
complaints. We're giggling.
For giggling of all things. We were all sober.
I know. Yeah.
I know, poor people who are just trying to find sanctuary in nature are just like.
Okay, Rather Like Hearts asks, will you do a podcast on the upcoming movies Fantastic Beast or Girl on the Train?
Yeah,
should
well,
ask.
we can tell you our next episode is about Girl on the Train.
Yay!
Hey!
Actually, so if you're watching this live, the next episode that will come out will be this episode. But for us, the next episode we're recording, we'll be talking about Girl on the Train.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me
me
too.
too.
Although I'm kind of scared. Newman's Own says, has a book ever inspired you to go out and do what the characters did, like ride horses and drive cattle, a la Lonesome Dove?
I like this Newman guy.
I know, who is this person?
I'm very impressionable, so any book I read, I kind of want to go do the thing. Like I read When Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by, I can't remember who it's by, but she works in a crematorium, and I was like, hanging out with dead people sounds cool.
It does, though.
Yeah. I don't know if I've actually gone and done something because I'll have to think about that for a second.
I mean, like, didn't Eat, Pray, Love inspire people to go do that?
But I don't think I actually did that.
Yeah, I didn't do that. I think the closest thing to like direct inspiration to like action was reading Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic, and this has nothing to do with her self-help, but she had a chapter about elk calls, making elk calls in Big Magic. So I Googled what an elk call makes, like what an elk mating.
I'm just
Do
like, I
it.
need this in my
Do
life.
it for us.
Yeah, so now I know what an elk sounds like. But I think that's as far as it goes with actual direct traceable inspiration.
Wow, I really thought that story was going somewhere.
I really thought it was going to result in an
but it's not
alcohol.
mine to tell because it involves making that sound and then Bob and also Sugarface. So I can't tell that story because I didn't clear it with him to share. So
I'm sure he'll be happy you told him that about this piece. I feel like literature influences my life totally, but maybe in more subtle ways. Like I can't think of a situation where it really like, literally pushed me to go do something. But sometimes it's more like inspires a certain feeling that I might pursue or whatever. Like it influences me, but not so like one-to-one. Like I read it about a character going here and then I go there.
Yeah, to me, like I think of like The Devil Wears Prada, and like that's like an inspiring, like, oh, I can do this. But it's not like I'm going to go apply to a fashion magazine. It's just like the feeling of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Oh,
Next
there's
question.
Linda. I was like, where did we go?
Explorer again. Has there ever been a sitcom set in a library? I guess that's not a real question because then he says, I feel that would be fascinating and quiet.
My library is not actually very quiet. It's very busy. So, but same thing as our real world show, it would be so boring. But I mean,
But I think you could make that interesting though. There could be lots of like little tiny stories throughout it. Like,
yeah, I feel like it would have to focus like very narrowly, like almost Seinfeld-like on like tiny annoying things about humans. But I feel like there have been shows about librarians, but there's like usually some like supernatural element or something that makes it more interesting than it really would be. But otherwise, it's kind of pretty similar to just like working in any office, but there's tons of sitcoms about that, so I don't see why not.
yeah, true. Dee says, random question, but which book, movie, or show would you recommend to each current presidential candidate?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I
Tiny
read this.
Beautiful Things definitely to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I read this and I was like, oh my God, that's so
Set
hard.
the
But
bar
then I was like,
high.
no, it's the book I recommend to every single human. It's The Gifts of Imperfection. by Brené Brown.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know what I'd recommend to Hillary. Maybe just something really good, like Just Kids. Do you think she's read that?
You should
Sounds
definitely
like a-
recommend Just
Daring
Kids.
Greatly, that's a good one. Like, go for it,
That's a good
Hillary.
one.
I think she's already going for it, guys.
Yeah, she's daring. And hopefully she won't need to rise strong.
I think she very much always has. Already has.
True. True. Yeah. I'm trying to think of another good one for Trump. I don't know. Everybody poops.
We are all people, okay?
Yeah.
I keep like looking at the books I have to the right of me to like hope it's going to inspire some kind of thought. I guess most of my books are behind me. You can't actually see them; they're right there. But I did happen to just notice Wild, which has not inspired me directly to go hike the Pacific Crest Trail, but it certainly helped. It's like challenging for a number of reasons, but it definitely made me want to go hike more. I think actually I read it before I was into hiking anyway, so I guess maybe it opened like a tiny door in my brain that led to a number of different things that led me to national parks and hiking.
See, I read that and just wanted to go to REI and buy a bunch of gear and be like, hey! I have impulse control issues with that.
Do we have any more questions?
Newman's Own wants to know, Ashley, do you work in a rare books research library or a public library? And is there a major difference between working at the two?
I work in an academic library that's pretty big. I'm sure there are major differences, but I've worked in 2 academic libraries, but I've never worked in a public library. So just based on like things I've heard public librarians say, I think there is a pretty significant difference. And very often in like library school, people kind of make that choice. Although there's some crossing back and forth, but and I didn't go to library school, by the way. I just work in a library. But yeah, I think there's some huge differences, but I don't really know the public library world at all. All right.
We have one more. We have one more really good question.
Okay.
I Love Virginia said, would you ever do a meetup if you were traveling in the same city?
Oh my gosh. I have to quote a text I received last night from one Miss Nicole Marie says. She says, meet up with strangers or, oh no, that's my question. She says, wait, where was it?
Before
Basically
that?
I said, yeah. Very smart, Nicole. There was like a lot of other stuff in between. She says, for 75 or 100, we should do a meetup. And I was like, meet up with strangers or just ourselves? He said, I think strangers, but I'm feeling more introverted today than I was last night. So.
We'll have to play it by ear, guys.
I am curious where everybody watching is from, because I think that would be, I think there's like one person in a couple of different places. So
tell us where you're from and we can plan it.
Yeah.
Especially
we'll plan
if
to
you
meet,
have
like the 4 of us will show up to meet the one of you.
Yes.
Although Nicole and I will be in California in January.
Yes.
And Ashley is in California.
Looks like we're putting money in our suitcase.
I should save some money for a plane ticket for January.
I don't know.
This is how you break the news to me.
Yeah. That's in California.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's in California. But, we like to travel, but we haven't really been traveling very much the last few years because,
we do need to get together because we haven't seen each other.
Yeah, actually, this is probably the longest we've gone without seeing each other in a while.
Yeah.
It's been a year and 4 months.
Linda, I saw you last weekend.
And I did see Ashley a month and a half ago.
Fine, none of you have seen me, okay?
I know. I haven't seen you, Ashley, in years.
I guess I actually did see Nicole. What was that, last year, Nicole?
Dinner. It was last year, around this time, I think.
You got food poisoning. I was fine.
Oh my God, it was so bad. It was leaving you. I was just...
Your body was in mourning.
That was right after we started our podcast, because I think we just recorded the 2nd episode.
Yeah. We just
one question I just wanted to talk about, and it'll be probably our last question, is just I don't know if anybody listening is thinking about maybe starting their own podcast. Do we have any advice or thoughts or recommendations or encouragement?
Showing up.
Make sure it's a topic you really want to keep talking about, or set an end point for yourself, because it will go on indefinitely.
Yeah, I would say, like, if you're gonna do a group podcast, I would say make it not only people you like, but like want to talk to every single week. Like, we've recorded this time, but on Mondays every single week. And you know, we get home from work, I'm sure we're all tired and stuff. Monday is like a weird day. And you know, I'm always like happy to talk to the girls. Only one time was I like so grumpy I just wanted it to be over. But that's because I didn't feel good. But usually I'm like excited.
I think that was the same episode for me, where I felt the same way too. But listening to us, I was like, oh, thank God you can't really tell.
Yeah, it's true. Like I felt that way a few times too, and I feel like you can't ever really tell.
Yeah. So yeah, I would recommend that. And then also just like there's, you know, if you can do it with friends who are like in the same location, it'd be so much easier. But
then you can just reach over and fix their technical problems as opposed to like, click here, do this.
Or at least the same time zone.
Yeah. Also, we're in 3 different time zones, which is why we couldn't do this any earlier for any of you who wished that it was, because like we started at 6 my time, which is the earliest I can do it.
Yeah. And we were being asked why we changed our logo from pink to navy, just for a change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
just for fun.
I thought that 50 would be a good place to change, but also I was just like messing around with things the other night, so that's why I did it early. I didn't think anyone would notice. Newman's Own also asked us if we'd ever invite a guy into the podcast for a male perspective. I mean, we haven't had any guests at all, but I'm not against that idea.
And Coracasting wants to know who we would each invite as a guest.
Oh. I'm sure Liz Gilbert's making fun of
Is the world our oyster?
Anna
I would like to invite Justin Timberlake.
Justin Timberlake and Anna Kendrick at the same time.
Can I invite Taylor Swift?
Sure.
This is quite the party.
Like, is this happening all at once? Is this a party or is this
podcast?
Oprah.
Oh my God, they want to see Bob the dog.
Oh, bring Bob.
Oh yeah, Bob, come here. Bob. He's like wrestling.
I super thought she was going to say, I thought you were going to say Bourdain, Linda.
Oh yeah, Anthony Bourdain too, or Ryan Gosling. But I've started to not really feel the love for Ryan Gosling anymore. I guess he's just been laying low, and I haven't been like stalking him.
Because you have a boyfriend.
Oh yeah.
I hear Bob,
Where's
but I
Bob?
don't see him.
Growling. Come here, Bob. Come here. Come here. Come here.
Come here.
You got.
I'll leave Bob's noises in for full effect.
Oh, he's cute.
He's cute.
If there's anybody just listening to this and not participating live, you know, just go to Bob Dog ATX on Instagram and you can see.
The last
much
photo
Bob.
is kind of obscene. It's
Linda.
sorry.
Oh, I wish the cat were here to show her. He's our mascot.
You can go to Instagram to see all of these pictures. Okay, so it's the end of our show. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, this was super fun, and
It
we're like really excited about it. So thank you so much, and thank you to those of you who are just like listening to this a week later and have no idea what's going on. If you want to watch the video of it, you can go to our website, which is ifeelbetterpodcast.com. I kind of, not to get sentimental and Billy Crystal up in here, but I kind of can't believe we made it to episode 50 and that we're approaching a year. This is definitely our most successful collaboration, I think.
Yeah.
So,
No.
you know, and we did actually vlog together for like a couple years. So, all right. Go to ifeelbetterpodcast.com for links and all the things we've been talking about. Does everyone feel better? And please in the chat, chime in.
Yeah.
Good. We'll talk again next week. Everyone, wave goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.